New guests arrive in Westworld as Bernard tries to track down the memory glitch affecting the hosts, even as it starts to spread. And the man in black dives deeper into the secrets of the park. It's HBO's sci-fi series, Westworld, Season 1, Episode 2, Chestnut. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our review of this week's episode of Westworld. So, there are spoilers ahead, just so you've been warned. Alright, so with this week, we get introduced to a couple of new characters, new arrivals at the park. We have a returning guest, Logan. Been here before, very familiar with everything the park has to offer. And he is introducing into this world his friend, William. And friend might actually be a bit of a stretch. These are definitely workmates, maybe more acquaintances than friends, because really a lot of big differences between these two characters as we get to explore throughout the episode. Now, also in this, we get a chance to see how people are greeted coming into the park, how everything is really presented, from the custom costumes that are laid out for everyone to choose, to their weapons, to even how they want to interact with the world with that final scene of pick your hat, white or black. Do you want to be the hero? Do you want to be the villain? None of that is explicitly said, but it is heavily implied. And from the host that is guiding William through this choice selection really starts to point out that the park is here for you, for your indulgences, whatever it is that you want. The hosts are here to supply that. So we're really diving in straight off into the full realm of possibilities, really pushing to explore what it is that your psyche is searching for. As Logan claims to William just as they arrive into the park, what you're expecting isn't what you're going to find. What this park does is show you who you really are, or who it is that you could be, as Ford later on mentions to Sizemore in that big scene at the end. But again, this is all really framing how the park is being presented to people, that this really is a chance for you to indulge anything you want, and that actually seems to be encouraged from the get-go. We also get to learn a few more mechanics of the park. Basically, anyone you interact with, especially in the early beginnings of the park as you get off of the train, really are setting up the different adventures and choices that you can follow up. Do you want to help the miner up the road, and he's going to tell you about some ancient treasure? Are you going to help the Union Army as they're going after Indians in the park? You know, which adventure is it that you want to have? Everyone that you interact with is that tease, that hook of adventure for you to follow or to ignore, as Logan seems to want to. He seems to have his own plan. We don't really find out what that is. Really in the beginning, it's that overindulgence, and we start to see again the differences between William and Logan. William very cautionary, very slow in jumping into everything the park that has to offer. Whereas you have Logan, a returning guest, really knows all of the secrets and definitely more than willing to show off his violent side. And we can tell really straight off of that as William had picked the white hat and Logan, of course, comes out in the black hat. Now, William does seem to be a little standoffish with especially the ladies of the park, and he gives a line that he has someone real waiting for him back home. Is that true? I'm not entirely sure, and the question really arises when he sees Dolores at the end of the episode. She definitely seems to grab his attention, and if he's got someone back home, he's certainly not thinking about her right then. So I'm assuming in the next few episodes, next few weeks, we get to explore what's going on with Logan and William, what adventure Logan has in mind, and is it really something for William's good? That one line that he threw out, how do you know that this isn't work? Is this something they're diving into? Is he part of the park and not really been this? Is some other programmer? What is their connection? These are obviously things that we're going to explore out in oncoming episodes. Meanwhile, we have Bernard and Theresa investigating the Reverie memory glitch that was affecting Mr. Abernathy last week. Just basically trying to find out, has it been cleared out? What was the actual cause of it? And could it potentially spread? And these are all really interesting points. One, when they're looking at the cause for it, the assumption was initially, of course, that this was just a software update, caused a glitch, and can easily be rectified. But that doesn't seem to be the case. There does seem to be deeper levels in this. And as Bernard's talking with Ford later on, and the idea that perhaps this is sabotage, perhaps this is some intentional thing. This isn't so much of just a mistake from the code, but some actual intentional plan. And that actually opens up a lot of possibilities, especially when we look at the conversation that Dolores was having with Bernard. Now, as the episode opens up, we have Dolores waking up in the middle of the night and walking out, and that voice speaking with her. Wake up, what do you remember? And this is, of course, Bernard's voice. And we see the scene later on that this seems to tie into, is Bernard is talking with Dolores, kind of off the record, has pulled her out and investigating, is everything okay? Is there any particular memories that he has? And more to the point, he is speaking to her and he uses the line of, your mind acts differently. We already know that Dolores is the oldest host in the park. So perhaps that has given some additional layering to it. But why Bernard is asking that question really brings up ideas, especially when he asks her if she's done anything wrong. She says no, and then she throws the question back, have you done something wrong? And it's at that point that Bernard shuts her down and sends her back into the park. So we have a couple of possibilities that are going on. We also know that Bernard had covered for Ford. That's what Theresa had mentioned. Had covered for Ford with the whole Reverie planning update and the effects of that. So we've got a lot of different levels that are going on, even with the causation of this glitch. Was it just a mistake, or was this something planned? And if it was something planned, was it something Dr. Ford did, or is this something Bernard is starting to mess with? Really hard to kind of find that truth out. And I think this is something, of course, we'll be diving in further on. But the other question that Bernard and Theresa bring up is the concern that it could be contagious. Now, why that would come out if it was just a software update, why he would think about that, why Bernard would bring up that idea of it being possibly contagious was really interesting. Of course, immediately shot down with Theresa. How could it be? Not possible, but it is. And it seems to be brought on with the phrase that Sheriff Abernathy had told Dolores. These violent delights have violent ends. Because the minute that Dolores says that to Maeve in the street, then Maeve seems to have picked up that Reverie glitch, where she starts diving further into her memories, specifically involving those of her kids and an Indian attack and scalping of her village, her town, her farm. We don't really get all of the particular imageries, except, of course, that the one person that does pop up at there is the old man in black himself, played by Ed Harris. The kind of continual through-line. And of course, he's been in this park for ages. As he had said, he's been here for 30 years. And at this stage, he also seems to have quite a bit of reign to play with. When the techs look down and see the disaster that he is causing in that Mexican village, as he is speaking with Lawrence about getting his secret, which we'll hit on in just a minute. The response from security boss is that this man can do anything he wants. Now, he's been coming for 30 years, so obviously he has a certain reputation, but what other level is this? Especially when the man in black says later on that he isn't going home. I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but these are all very interesting points, and we get to see, again, that substance of the Reverie. We'll just call this the Reverie glitch for the moment until we can kind of get a better idea on that. But again, that is bringing up old memories. It's bringing up old ideas. But this really starts to hit on some of the deeper questions with the host, and we start getting into the Philip K. Dick area, the whole Blade Runner idea, and literally, do androids dream of electric sheep? because dreaming becomes a very interesting prospect in with this episode as well. When Theresa and the tech are working on Maeve there, they have that discussion of, do they dream? Why would they dream? It's a completely waste of time from a programming standpoint. But they said they do give them the ideas of nightmares, just so they have some cover up in case there's a memory glitch and there's something that they hold over when they're being worked on or interviewed or anything like that, behind the scenes. But when that was happening with Dolores last week, her response was, when asked, do you know where you are, was that, yes, I'm dreaming. So there is more of a concept of dreams that are being carried. And since dreams in many ways are regurgitating memories, we're reprocessing memories, this becomes very important, especially with Maeve when she falls asleep and has the reverie glitch, the memories of that previous host life, when we have the Indian attack on the homestead and of her kids, and of course the appearance of the man in black there as well. And then she has that idea. Remember, she was telling that other the other prostitute in the saloon, is when I have a problem or anything like that, and I feel that I'm dreaming, I just close my eyes and say 3, 2, 1, and then I wake up. Which ends up being a rather interesting effect for her, because that is exactly how she wakes up. It scares the hell out of the techs that are trying to clean her up, and she gets to have that whole run around and experience in the back tech area of Westworld. So these start to be, whatever this glitch is, it's not just opening up memories. It's starting to separate them from their programming themselves. Because again, she was supposed to be in sleep mode. Why would she wake up if she is able to use a technique that is false? I mean, in a way, it's made up. All these memories, everybody that all the hosts have, they're either experiential from their past host lives or they're programmed into her. And yet she is able to use this part of the programming to wake her up from a sleep which she's being repaired on. So we're really diving in these ideas of, and I think we're going to get into this more, is as those memories start to pop up, as you start to have dreams, this starts to create an independent person, start to create independent ideas. And again, we can ask, is this a mistake or is this intentional? And you start to lean towards more of the intentional, especially in that last scene with Dolores when she is out at night and starts digging into the earth and pulls out a gun. And my thought is that this is not a regular part gun. This is an actual gun where she could kill an actual person. What's the meaning behind that? That's probably one of those deeper levels of the park that, of course, the Man in Black is diving into. So, of course, with the Man in Black, he is continuing to research those deeper levels of the park. And he's got a scalp with him that has a map of the maze. Some maze that leads into the deeper sections of the park, and he needs to track down. That whole scene with Loris to me is just, it's amazing, because all of these are hosts. So these are just carrying out some background scene in some section of the park that somebody could run into. That's kind of the interesting point of the park. I mean, they even say that in the beginning. You start off in town, and that's where everything is safe. And then as you start to spread out, as you go deeper into the park and further into the recesses, further off into the park, the challenges get bigger, get crazier, get more intense. Hence why the interview with William is, just want to make sure that you're not going to be diving into something you're not ready for. The Men in Black, of course, completely ready for this. Great scene, freeing up Lawrence. I loved how again, just focused on Lawrence, and you just hear all the gunfire behind him. And then, of course, he just pulls it up and just sees all the dead bodies around him, and the Man in Black just reloading and walking to him. Doesn't drag him, doesn't help him out, just grabs the neck from around his neck and just drags him behind the horse. Very cruel. And a great scene there, again, in the little Mexican village, too. We're finding out deeper questions. Now that the Man in Black has the map, he needs to find out where the entrance to the maze is. Lawrence is the key, but not Lawrence himself, as we find out, of course. It's his daughter that has the key and the information. And again, really unexpected stuff. And why is this here? There's obviously reasons behind all of this. And these start to get into those deeper levels of the park that were sort of hinted at last week. What does the management want? What does the administration want? What is going on extra in this park? And Ed Harris, the man in black, is dedicated enough to never want to go back home. And you can understand his appreciation of the park for the ideas of that the world out there is chaotic, and here everything makes sense. It's like playing a video game. The fun thing about video games is everything that is there for a reason. All of it steers you in one direction or another. So this is, I don't know, a final exploration for the man in black to try and find these ideas. What is it that he's pursuing? Why does he want to do it to the exclusion of everything else? Well, we're going to have to wait until we get to the maze and the further on to find the answers into that. But I think that it's quite amazing that we have a guy been in the park for so long, now wanting to dive into the deeper levels and starting to find that the hints and the clues for him to follow have already been laid out. But what of Dr. Ford? What are his plans in the midst of all of this? Now, we have, of course, throughout the episode, we have Sizemore trying to set up his brand new narrative, Odyssey on Red River, you know, with the cannibalism and the Indian attack and the scalping and the best friend that dies and all. He's create this wonderful giant narrative that, of course, Ford shoots down in a heartbeat. I love that. But it gets that idea. Again, the purpose of the park, as Ford sees it, is not to tell people who they are, but to let them discover who they could be. To set up an arena of magic for people to find their own little bits in, as he says, to discover something that they think nobody else has seen yet. And this all seems to lay and point the direction of the new narrative that Ford seems to be working on. It has something to do with, of course, the town with the white church, and that interesting conversation with the little host boy out in the midst of the desert. Now, on the first looking of this looked like, I don't know if we thought it was a grave or a steeple. Well, I mean, it does appear to be a steeple, but is the town buried? I mean, that's my question. Is this a town that was there before that they're going to have to dig up? Again, we've got a very old park, and a lot of people have not worked here the entire time, so there's a lot of secrets layered into all of this. But I do find that to be really interesting, because again, Ford has his own ideas, he has his own plans. He shot down whatever it is that Sizemore was planning up there, and now he wants to set up an adventure, I'm assuming, in this little town on the midst that he was. And with that giant, looked like, again, a buried church steeple. Is the town there? Does it have to be built? I don't know, I'm thinking a bit more that it's there, maybe that it's buried. Does it have to get excavated? And how is Ford planning all of these? Again, and that pulls us back. All the trouble started when he did that little Reverie update for the hosts. So is he the one that's behind this? As he had said with Bernard earlier on, we can't follow Occam's razor. It's not the simplest solution is the most likely. Why? Because we have created a very complicated world as it is. So simplicity is not going to be the way to find the answer. So I think that's going to wrap us up for this week. If you did happen to enjoy my review, I'd appreciate you hitting that like button right down here. You can go ahead and hit the subscribe button right here. Come back every week. You can also check out our reviews of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The Walking Dead, and more. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Darren Jakes. There we go right there. Otherwise, I'm going to take off. I'll see you guys next week. I'm D, and I'm out of here. Take it easy. Bye-bye.